best part of being a district judge? Well, I was a solicitor, several of the best parts are things I don't have to do anymore. So no more billing, no more timesheets. Also, much as I love the staff at my firm, no more HR stuff. That's not a judicial responsibility. We're not in charge of the court staff. There are court managers and others within the court service who deal with all of that. I was an equity partner in my firm, so obviously I was involved with HR and things there. But the best thing I've got to say I found has been holidays. Of course, I was a solicitor, and I'm sure it's the same for all branches of the law. When you're trying to get away, it's a nightmare when you try and get away. People I haven't heard from for years would suddenly have an emergency they need to talk to me about. And when you get back, you've got those hundreds of emails and piles of work waiting for you when you get back. Not when you're a judge. Because obviously you've got other judges around who deal with the cases. I went away on my first holiday and was a bit nervous, because I always was going on holiday. What am I going to find when I get back? And oh, hi, Judge. Did you have a nice holiday? That's it. There was no build-up. There was no horror before I went away. It was great. It's also really helped me with my work-life balance, because the good thing being a judge is when your day is finished, you're finished. There isn't the case you didn't have time for, that client wanted you to do X, Y, and Z that you find yourself doing at 10 o'clock at night. It's a much healthier work-life balance for me, I've got to say. Several things caused me to apply. I was a deputy district judge before I was a full district judge. So deputy district judge is the part-time equivalent, for anyone who doesn't know. And I was a solicitor, and for many years, obviously, I've been going into courts, and I could see that the courts needed as many hands on deck as possible, as many bodies as possible. We are busy. Plenty of solicitors, but distinct lack of judges. I also really wanted to give something back. I was a solicitor for 25 years, so I know all the dirty tricks and the problems that come with practice, and I thought that is something I could usefully bring to being a judge. Also, there were those many occasions when you're a solicitor and you think, I could have done that better. So I challenged myself. Okay, prove it. It was a new challenge as well, and I found it very rewarding. I do find it very rewarding. Also, it made me a very good, better solicitor. Knowing how it works as a deputy district judge, how it works on the other side of the bench, was extremely helpful for knowing how the court works. I call myself a gamekeeper turned poacher, in that I knew the stresses and things that judges have and what makes their life easier, and what they need. So it was beneficial all round. And then obviously I made the leap to becoming a full-time judge, became a district judge. I haven't actually found an enormous difference between being a district judge and a deputy district judge, and the main differences are positive. I'm always in the same place, so I get to know the court staff and the other judges better. Obviously, I have my court, so I've got everything set up the way I want it to be. I get to deal with the more interesting cases, because some courts, more complex cases or long-running cases, they won't give to the deputy district judges. Though it varies. I found as a deputy district judge, once they got to know me, didn't have any problem giving me more tricky cases. But sometimes, particularly for children cases, you want to reserve a case to yourself, and that's difficult when you're a deputy who's not always here. There's not suddenly a huge amount of extra admin that comes with it. I go to a meeting once a month with the court manager to see how we're doing, and mainly they're asking us if there's anything that more we need. We're not in charge of the court staff. They have their own management structure for that. So it wasn't a huge difference. Like I say, more continuity, get to know people better, slightly more interesting cases sometimes. But I haven't found it a huge difference, except, of course, I'm not trying to balance private life, solicitor work, being partner, being head of department, and being a deputy district judge all at the same time. I had caring responsibilities for elderly relatives as well, so it was tricky, and it's much easier as a full district judge. Yes, I do actually. I have caring responsibilities for elderly parents and various other things going on. So I only work 3 days of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it's not been a problem. What happened was when I was offered the role, I had a discussion, it could have been in person, I did it by video, with someone senior from the court service about what I needed and why. And they conferred with the senior leadership judges in this area, and they came back to me. We had a few emails, and then it was fine. It really wasn't a problem. I may be able to increase it later in time, but at the moment I've got my hands full on those other 2 days a week. But I'm very grateful that everyone was so understanding about it. The reason it's so important is the judiciary needs to reflect the population that we're dealing with. So if you find every judge is of a particular ethnic type, then that makes you begin to think that's a bit odd. It feels wrong. It's very important that we represent the population who we deal with, and if we don't represent that, then it could affect people's trust in us. Also, different people from different backgrounds bring all sorts of useful knowledge. Because if you're part of one particular community, you may well not know anything about another community, and having knowledge within the judiciary of all the different communities and backgrounds can be very, very useful. We have something it's called the Judicial Bench Book, which is absolute lifesaver in terms of various types, for example, in dealing with someone with a particular disability and things like that. We also get these very useful articles that come through to us from judges from different backgrounds, telling us about particular religious festivals or particular issues within that community. And if we didn't have judges from that community, we wouldn't have that, or at least we wouldn't have it with a judge's perspective. So it's important for how we're perceived, it's important for our understanding, and it's extremely useful for the insights we get from having people from different backgrounds within the judiciary. The application process, both for being a DDJ and for being a full DJ, is very similar. And I was starting to hear, can you give us an example of X in your sleep? The competency framework basically requires you to show that you have the ability to deal with various core areas that we deal with as judges. Processing information, dealing with a difficult situation, things like that. So the application form I actually found was the hardest element, which was giving requisite number of examples in enough detail to show these key competencies. It's not the time to be modest when you're doing this. You've got to show that you can do these things. And obviously you won't have had, we may not have had any judicial experience, it doesn't matter. It's all about showing that you have the core ability. Obviously there's extensive training, but the core ability is to deal with these various key areas. So once I got past that, the rest of it wasn't too bad. The interview, again, was asking about more examples, which is why I say you start hearing it in your sleep. So you need to give it some serious thought before you can get started, before you go to the interview, etc. But there was also online timed exam, which was fine. And particularly when I did the deputy district judge exam, there were some actors who came in playing parties in a court case, and they were really convincing. But actually, I quite enjoyed that. That's the job I wanted to do. So yeah, definitely the application form was the hardest part for me. Yeah, the rest of it wasn't too bad. Well, there's huge breadth of things you can get involved in. I volunteered myself for basically a family law liaison group with court users. I also got permission from my DCJ to go and be one of the reps for computer work. We're doing a lot of work in bringing online systems to replace paperwork, basically, for civil cases, family cases, etc. So I got involved in that. Every week at least, there's things that come through with opportunities for things to get involved in, come through in our emails. We also have the Association of District Judges, which is basically our union, and there's a huge number of interesting roles and opportunities with that, which somebody I know is doing as well. It's endless, and obviously even those are what I would call within the existing role. You can also you could apply to be a recorder, you could become a circuit judge, you can progress in all sorts of different directions if you want to. And one of the district judges I know, he's also a recorder. So there's a huge amount of things you can get involved in. I would say you find your feet before you go volunteering yourself for things, but yeah, there's huge scope to do extra things that accord with your interests. Definitely take all the opportunities you can. Go and shadow someone if you can. There's courses on pre-application and things like that. Do as much as you can of that to give you as much insight into what you're getting yourself into, also to give you advantages in the application process, and to ask the questions that you've got. If you can do it in your local court. There's an official system you have to go through for judicial shadowing, but certainly, if somebody is interested, I would be entirely happy to have them with me and show them what we do and how it works. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. Some judges can come across as quite intimidating, but you'll find if you ask them questions about becoming a judge, they will be very friendly. That's been one of my big surprises, pleasant things I found, is the huge support you get from any other judge. I literally have not found another judge who has been anything less than completely supportive and helpful. Even people, frankly, I was terrified of as a solicitor. When you're a judge or you're interested in being a judge, they're lovely. So basically, take all the opportunities, ask all your questions, look into it, and especially take any tips. Look at past entrance forms, admission forms, application forms that people have done as well, because as I say, that was the bit that I found really difficult. So yeah, take advantage of everything to stack the deck in your favour and to answer the questions, and make sure you've got a full understanding of how it works.